What's up everyone, Nethervvoid here with another Path of Exile build guide for you. What you're seeing in the background is my level 84 Ice Trapper build. It's a crit build, using Shadow as the starting class and going Saboteur for the Ascendancy. And let's get right into it. I want this video to remain short. So, what's my thinking behind this thing? Why am I doing a staff crit Trapper build? It seems kind of stupid. Basically, I wanted to do a Trapper build for a while, been wanting to do it for a while. I found the Realm Ender, I thought, wow, +3 to skills right off the bat, that's awesome. And it also has a built-in Cold to Fire. I've also been wanting to do a dual element build for a while. There aren't a lot of positives to a dual element build, that's why you don't see them very often. I just wanted to do one, I just haven't seen it, I thought, wow, it'd be cool. And basically the Realm Ender is kind of like a 6.5 link staff if you do get a 6 link, because you get the level 5 Cold to Fire. So that was kind of my idea around it. I looked at a lot of other trap builds, got some ideas, but definitely wanted to stay away from Jaws of Agony, which most people use to generate power charges, because traps cannot. Traps are entities, so whatever they do happens to them. They cannot reflect onto you, which is awesome, but they also can't generate charges for you, which sucks. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to figure it out. I figured out Orb of Storms can generate charges for me. Power charge and critical with Orb of Storms. You pick up the charges in like really fast. In fact, it's easiest to keep up these charges than ever before in any other character I've ever had. I thought, you know what, this is going to be fun. I'm doing something different. Let's do it. So that's what I decided to do. Now, the pros to this build, Reflect Immune, as we just talked about, because traps cannot be, they don't reflect the damage to you. The trap is an entity. It gets reflected to the trap, which doesn't matter because the trap's dead anyway. Pretty nice damage. Ice Trap scales really well with plus to skills, as you can probably, hopefully see if I'm showing the graphic where I did the actual analysis. I'm going to throw an Empower into the Realm Ender, and so I get a +5 right off the bat. And then if I corrupt the Ice Trap and I corrupt the Empower, I can get up to +7, which is even more crazy. Ice Trap scales really well with damage, with extra levels. So I thought that would be a great idea. Interesting playstyle. It's definitely not a face roll build. You definitely have to position well. Think of where you're throwing your traps. Think of where you're at all the time. It's kind of a fun build that way. Manage a lot of different skills at the same time. That's kind of cool. Can sustain charges in a boss fight. It's something on almost all my other builds I have a problem with, because almost all the charges are generated on kill. Obviously, that's difficult in a boss fight unless you're killing the minions. But with this, when I just throw out an Orb of Storms, it keeps shocking the boss, or I'm sorry, it keeps hitting the boss and generating power charges for me. So they stay up indefinitely. Cannot be frozen because I'm using Alpha Howl. That's nice. I'm using it for auras, but I get the cannot be frozen from it as well. That's kind of cool. Can reserve all of my mana because I'm using Mind Over Matter, Eldritch Battery, and Zealot's Oath to generate my mana. That means I can reserve all my mana and have tons of defensive auras, because Trapper auras don't really work that well with Trappers, in my opinion. Deep mana pool for expensive traps. Traps, when you link them with a bunch of other supports, are very expensive. And so the Mom, EB, Zealot's Oath trifecta really helps me with regenerating my mana. Fast trap cooldown for spamming. That comes from being a Saboteur. You get 40% extra cooldown from that. And you also get 30 off the tree, which gives you 70, which means you can spam traps to your heart's content. And generally, unless you're fighting a boss, you can keep spamming traps. You'll never really run out, which is nice. Can run almost any map mod because I have picked up Elemental Equilibrium, which I proc with Orb of Storms. That gives me negative 50% to cold damage before I throw down that trap. I don't always do it. I'm really running 2 tier 8 maps in this video, so I don't really even need it yet. My damage is so high I don't really need it. In fact, I've been taking off the Empower to run a legacy item quantity gem to just generate more currency for me in these maps, so I can buy more maps and things like that. Again, I can run Reflect. It's really easy. Pretty tanky, hardcore viable definitely. With Mom, it really helps with the life pool, not getting chunked for huge amounts of your life without being able to react. That's really nice. It's got enough endurance charges with the Mom to have a pretty nice little armor mitigation for physical. If you want to check out all the details for this build, I updated my build template. The link is in the video description. Everything's there to your heart. Links to everything is in there, all the uniques and everything, and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Check that out. It's a Google Doc. It's really awesome. It's really satisfying when everything explodes. That's pretty nice too about this build. I really love that. You see, for Saboteur, when you trigger one trap, they all go off, and so you can see a massive explosion. The cons to the build: the main skill can't generate power charges, which you talked about. The only other way to do it is to swap weapons over to Jaws of Agony and throw food traps. I didn't really find that appealing. Or you can just lay down an Orb of Storms, and you can proc Elemental Equilibrium as well as getting power charges, which is what I'm doing with this build. Clear speed can suffer because you have to cast 2 skills. Since the main skill can't generate charges, you can't just face roll, right? You got to stop a little bit, maneuver around a little bit. Clear speed suffers. Also because the AoE is not generally big enough, you leave a couple mobs behind generally. No Whirling Blades fortify. That really hurts, first of all, my move speed. But also, I like to Whirling Blade through a pack to pick up that fortify. Gives me another 20% reduced physical damage to my character. Very finesse playstyle, so it's fun, it's interesting, but it's also tedious at the map level, right? You want to clear fast, and it can be hard to clear, or it's a little annoying if you don't get every mob. I don't get every mob in either of these runs, and you'll see that happening. So if you're one of those people that needs to get every mob when you do a map, this is maybe not the build for you, because unless you pick up a Carcass Jack or more area effect that I don't have, it's good enough for me. I'm not really... I want clear speed, but I'm not that insane about it. I just let the few mobs, I'll leave 10 mobs, I don't really care. Lab is kind of tough because there's no life regen on this character. All the life comes from pots, comes from those flasks, right? So when you run through or try to navigate some traps and you're almost dead and you're halfway through and you run out of flask charges, you're screwed because you don't have life regen anymore. What I am going to do, because I did die once to the Merciless lab, and that's because I ran out of flask charges and couldn't regenerate my health. So I think I'm going to regret out of Zealot's Oath for the lab. That will give me back my life regen. The issue there is I will have to wait out of combat a lot to let my ES recharge. So this is not really a great lab runner in my opinion. For me, to run the lab, you need to be able to regen life. That's my opinion. I don't really like the lab though, so I don't play around on it a lot. Staff means less crit, block, and ES because first of all, we can't use a dagger. That would give us a lot of crit, a lot of spell damage, things like that. Block from the shield, obviously. ES from the shield. Those are really big things, and using a staff gives up a lot of that. The reason I'm using a staff is I wanted to try something different. I just wanted to do a different build, and that was the one way to do it. Movement's pretty slow unless you're using a potion, again, because we don't have Whirling Blades. Whirling Blades is a really great way to get around the map, and we don't have that. So we have Lightning Warp in this video, which isn't bad. It's definitely good if you're getting boxed in and things like that. It's just not a great move skill. Golem must be alive to mana regen. I'm using the Stone Golem. That's hitting my mana regen. That's actually allowing me to spam traps and not have to slow down and everything. When I got that Golem, it cleared up to my clear speed, something ridiculous. You have to have that Golem up to help you regen your mana. It's giant. There's a lot of different things about offense and defense and why I picked Realm Ender and Empower and Voidbringer and things like that. Let's just go over a couple uniques real quick. You can look at the list if you want to see exactly why I picked what I did. But we've got Realm Ender, which we talked about. We've got Voidbringer, which are unique gloves that give us a lot of crit because we don't get that crit off of the dagger, which we could get tons of crit off that dagger, right? So this kind of fills that gap. Now, it also means your traps cost 80% more in mana, quote-unquote, right? Now, energy shield in this case. But the Voidbringer makes up for that with a giant stack of energy shield, so it's okay. To me, it was worth getting all that crit. It was very noticeable. It gives me like 10% crit, so it's definitely worthwhile. When I'm sitting in the hideout, I have about 45% crit on the tooltip, just sitting around. With power charges, about 65%, so it's definitely worth that extra 10%. So, what else are we using? At Ziri's Promise does not get us leech because, again, the traps leech, not you, but it does get us a nice 15% extra damage, chaos damage. It does boost us up a lot. If you want to see the tooltips, check that link. They're at the bottom of that the build guide, because I'm really getting deep into this guide here at 9-something minutes. Alpha Sal is really so we can run Grace, Arctic Armor, and Enfeeble on Blasphemy. Those are a bunch of really great defensive auras for this build. A lot of good physical mitigation with Arctic Armor. Enfeeble's great because it lowers accuracy and it lowers their damage, which is a double dipper right there for defense. and then Grace for just the added evasion. Alpha Sal reduces our mana, so that's great. That's how we can run all of those auras. Let's see, anything else? Let's talk about Mind Over Matter, Eldritch Battery, and Zealot's Oath. Mind Over Matter takes 30% of your damage from mana first, so Eldritch Battery causes ES to now cover mana, and when you cast something, you cast it from your energy shield. So when you get hit, 30% of the damage comes from your energy shield that you're also using for mana, so that's perfect. The Zealot's Oath causes your life regen to count toward ES, and which means your mana regen, which kind of makes this build possible to keep spamming those traps. The reason this is good is because you can actually stack a lot of ES, and it's not that difficult to do off of your gear and a few nodes off of the tree. There's some great nodes on the passive tree to pick up a lot of ES, so it's really easy to get. This is a very intelligence-heavy build, so it gets a lot of extra ES just from that. And it's a great way to stack up that extra quote-unquote life, right? But also spend it for, you know, skills and have it regenerate very quickly. Let's see, anything else? That's pretty much it as far as uniques. I am using a unique jewel, the hair trigger, and really what this is a quality of life for me. There is some trap damage on it, which is awesome, but really it's to increase from 20 to 30% increased trigger range on traps. With cluster traps, I noticed it can kind of be hard to hit a single character or a single creature, so I use the hair trigger there. Carcass Jack, if you want more area effect, it's definitely a quality of life booster for the build. I just didn't feel it was all that valuable. I really liked the rare chest that I got with a lot of extra resistance, because that's really hard to get on this build, a lot of to cap your resistance stuff. Passive tree, I don't want to go over too much. I have a level 50, a level 75, and a level 95 passive trees in my build guide in linked in the video description. Basically, when you're leveling, I leveled with Fire Trap, and I went after all the trap damage nodes first. Crit nodes I saved to last, so I went trap damage first, pick up some life nodes on the way, obviously. After that, I pretty much went for life nodes and stuff, and got set up for the Mom, Eldritch Battery, Zealot's Oath trifecta at about level 75 is when I turned it on when I was about to start maps, actually about level 70. That's when I geared up with a bunch of evasion and ES gear to get my ES high enough to actually run those 3 medallions. I go over the skill gems. Basically, let's just go over the one for Realm Ender. We got Ice Trap, Cluster Traps, that throws 4 traps with less damage. Really helps with clear speed. Trap and mine damage is kind of a no-brainer. It's more damage for traps and mines. Increased critical helps because Ice Trap only has a 5% critical by default, and so adding in the critical gem bumps it up quite a bit from the base, so that when you actually add critical strike chance, it really bumps it up a lot. Empower obviously is my 5th gem. I'm sorry, 5th gem. Really bumps up your damage output quite a lot when you're getting close to level 20 Ice Trap. When you're in like level 15 range, it doesn't help a lot, so just wait till you're about level 20, throw that one in there. You can run this on a 4-link for quite a long time, that's what I did. Lastly, I would probably go with Ink AoE or Ink Critical Multiplier. Critical damage, basically, is the gem name. Ink AoE for just quality of life, and obviously the multiplier to get even more damage out of the build. Cold to Fire, which is inherent at level 5 to the staff, adds quite a bit of damage. I was really surprised. It's actually only 14% increased damage if you look at the wiki. But overall, I noticed quite a significant damage on the fire side of things. The reason I didn't go Avatar of Fire is because when I crit, I do notice some freeze time on enemies. And as you're seeing level 19 footage right here from my Ice Gem, but once I get to level 20, it's going to be even more ridiculous. I am getting some nice crits, and once I pick up a little bit more crit, I will be, and crit multi, I will be freezing people. You can see sometimes to get frozen, it really helps stop them up and slow them down so that I can have a little bit more time to get out of the way. That's why I didn't convert everything to fire. Plus, my ignites are not that big. They're big, but they're not big enough to switch everything to fire. I'd have to switch the whole build out for that. This is not an Avatar of Fire build. I also have Orbistorms linked with increased critical strikes and power charge and critical that generates power charges very easily. Val Grace and increased duration, and Val Lightning Trap. Those are all linked together. Obviously, Val Grace with increased duration, it's really great against bosses and things like that. Val Lightning Trap shocks the boss for like 24 seconds if they stand still anyway. You can burn them down really fast that way. Cast when damage taken with Immortal Call and increased duration gives me some immunity to physical for a little while if I take a big hit. I linked Enduring Cry in there just to get the extra increased duration with that. It used to boost up your energy shield regen, and I don't think it does now. At least it doesn't show in the tooltip when I fired it off. In the helm, I've got Enfeeble with Blasphemy linked, and then I've just got Arctic Armor and Grace. They don't need to be linked. They just need to be in the helm, so they get +2 to auras, and they get the reduced mana from the helm. So, armor, again, Carcass Jack or Rare. Right, obviously the staff, you got a Realm Ender. It's actually better if you get a +3 to cold skills staff, because you can get crit and a couple other things. You do lose the cold to fire switch, but it's probably worth it. Again, you lose the ignites. Those are a little bit extra damage in there, but I think a rare +3 skill staff is probably better. They're just really expensive. I didn't have one. Voidbringer for gloves, which we already talked about. Boots, just a rare version of boots. I have two-tone boots, which really helps. All your rares, you need to stack up a lot of resistances, because it's really hard to cap and then get over the cap so that you can be immune to Enfeeble or whatever it's called. Basically, the resistance lowering map mod. Belt, rare crystal belt to get as much ES as possible. It's really hard to get ES without that shield. Right ring and left ring, I just went rares. Again, we want life, you want ES, you want resistances, and so on. Amulet, I stacked it really heavy on stats. This thing needs a lot of strength and a lot of dex, and I didn't pick up any off the tree because the tree is already slammed. So go ahead and get that. Flasks, Rumi's Concoction helps with defense a lot. At Zeri's Promise, a couple other... You'll just have to check it out. The flasks are pretty generic. And then I have a bunch of breakdown of other things for defense and things like that, and tooltip. For bandits, you're going to want to go Oak, Kill All, and then Alira for the extra power charge. And that's pretty much it. If you want to know more about this build, check it out in the video description. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Next, I think I'll be working on a lightning arrow build, although I'm not sure. It's been really overdone with Voltaxic and stuff. If I do, it will not be a Voltaxic build. But I'm thinking about maybe a Burning Arrow Fire Prolif build. That could be really fun. I definitely want to do a bull build. I haven't done one in a while. So let me know what you think in the comments section below. And as always, everyone, stay frosty.